count your blessings. You probably will run out of fingers and numbers once you count everything around you. That is one more reason to be grateful for.
Welcome to the Open Delta podcast, where we believe that you are here to be more, not do more. I am your host, Aileen, and as a coach, speaker, and consultant, I will help you manifest your dream life that can bring you more power, peace, and cash. If you're ready to dive into the mindset, neuroscience, and connection to the universe, vamos a darle.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Open Delta. I am your host, Aileen Hirsch, and I am so excited to have you today. Today it's a very special episode. It is our Thanksgiving segment, and it is also going to be a little bit different from what we have been doing for most of the season. I am going to be sharing with you an experience, a series of lessons that I've learned from this experience, and it's the first time that I speak about this really aloud in any sort of platform. A lot of the people that know about what happened, either their friends, family, close ones, or maybe they helped me along the way in some shape or form. So my moment of gratefulness today is honestly just being alive. I'll get into the details later, and I'll just summarize in terms of I just feel very grateful that I'm alive, that I'm here, that I get to share these lessons with you. The title of the podcast today is Was It an Accident or Divine Intervention? And really what I am defining as accident, it's traditionally we think of accidents as just random, unintended events with like no intended purpose. And what I want to invite you to think about is divine intervention. To me, it's more from the spiritual idea that are moments that are orchestrated by a higher power or universal force for a specific intention or with a greater purpose. And what I choose to believe is that everything is a lesson. Everything does happen for a reason. In the moment, we might not know what that reason is, what that lesson is. However, I do believe that there's something else beyond our understanding, beyond our conscious beliefs that are helping you in getting ultimately what you want and what your soul needs in order to... We're spiritual beings and human bodies, so whatever your spirit came here to experience in planet Earth, it is helping you achieve that. Sometimes it's very cool stuff, like falling in love, and sometimes it's not so fun stuff. And we are going to talk a little bit about both things today. And Carl Jung, it's one of my favorite, I don't even know what he is, like philosopher, very intuitive person that it's, to me, he's a philosopher. And I want to share with you before we get into the story, because he has a very insightful and thoughtful opinions on what he means synchronicities are. And essentially, he defines synchronicities as the occurrences of two or more events that are meaningfully related to each other, but lack a causal connection. These events seem to coincide coincide in a way that feels significant, although there's no logical explanation in their alignment. And one of the examples that I was reading about him is about thinking of a friend that maybe you haven't talked in several years, and maybe they call you or text you, or you see them pop up out of nowhere on your phone. This is a example of synchronicity event. Although these two events, thinking of a friend and their call, have no causal connection, it is too significant to be random. It's what Carl Jung is trying to demonstrate. He also challenges the notion of just it being pure chance. So he challenges the idea that all coincidences are just random. He proposed through his work that the events may align for reasons beyond chance, implying that life might have been an underlying order or intelligence. And I choose to believe that yes, it's a higher intelligence above my understanding, above my willingness to understand it, honestly. And he felt that synchronicity could reveal hidden connection between our internal psyche and external reality. And he has a lot of different things, but I'll just leave it at that. Through our psyche, we have connections to the unconscious, and Jung believed that the synchronistic events are expressions of our collective unconscious, which is a universal part of the human psyche that really transcends the personal experience. And this essentially is the way how the unconscious communicates with the unconscious, and the loop in between those. And so synchronicity was a way, as Jung described, for the inner world of our psyche with the outer events that are going on to provide insight into our personal development, unresolved conflicts, or spiritual growth. And so I just think that he has a lot of interesting points when it comes to synchronicities, because I also don't think everything's random. And when I started this podcast, I spoke about my reference of the disco ball effect and how that idea just kept haunting me in a good way. And a couple days or weeks later after the launch, I really wanted a disco ball in the apartment to just be a physical remembrance of what the brand is, what it really means to me, the deeper meaning that I came about. And Andrea and I, one of my friends and I, went to the Ship Fiesta, which we were celebrating 50 years of SHIP, 50 years of celebrating Hispanics in STEM. And when we walked in, it was a boat party, and so there was going to be music, there was going to be food, there was going to be a lot of networking, and all the decorations at the table were little disco balls with the flowers. And I have one here, and maybe we see one on the back too. And this is not a disco ball proper. However, it's the same thing. Like when you look at it, it's reflective. You see the different lights reflecting off of it, and it's beautiful and it's imperfect. And it's just so mesmerizing. And that morning I even looked it up online, like where can I get disco ball decorations? And so the idea was on my head of disco balls. And I really wanted it. And when we got to the Ship Fiesta, I asked Monique, like, hey, can I take one of these home? And she said, of course. And I took some of them home, and Andrea grabbed one for me so I wouldn't look like a crazy lady stealing the ornaments to bring them home. However, to me, that was just kind of like a crazy coincidence, a synchronicity of this is something that I wanted, and it just so happened, right, that I went to the ship fiesta. Out of all the decorations that they could have picked, they chose that, and now I'm able to have that home. So, are there accidents, or is it something else? So, Rocky and I have been married for 2 years now. So happy. And when we got married, I, in prayer to God, never said it out loud, I asked for a way for me and Rocky to have strength enough marriage. We both come from divorced parents, and so I think from that frame of reference, like, we wanted to make sure that we were loving, supportive, understanding, empathetic to each other and to our relationship. This is two adults making a decision to stay in love and in a relationship for good intentions, with all the hopes and dreams that we wanted out of our relationship. So I was asking for opportunities for us to show us that strength, for show us to show us that love, and to be able to like fully experience it. That was the desire in my heart. Again, never really even said that out loud. I just really wanted that moment of love and support with my partner. Like I mentioned before, Rocky was really my first very healthy relationship, and so it was my way of honoring that and giving it my all. So we got married. A couple weeks later, we go to our honeymoon. We were going to spend around 2 to 3 weeks in Bali. It takes forever to get there. So we flew from Dallas to Atlanta. Then Atlanta, we went to Seoul, South Korea, and then from South Korea, we had a long layover, and then it was South Korea to Bali. We get to Bali, we get our first hotel. We're very, ¿cómo se dice? Can't remember the word of, we were just tired from all the travel and adjusting to the new time zone. And then we go to Ubud, which was great. We went to the sea elephants. We went to the temples. We were doing all the things that we had said to explore and to do on our honeymoon. And we ended up going to Nusa Penida. If you've ever been on a random rabbit hole on Pinterest, Nusa Penida, it's where like that T-Rex cliff looking thing is at. That is Nusa Penida. And I really wanted to go there. And so you have to take a ferry from the mainland to this island. And this island was, the locals told us that it was years and years and years unexplored, because the rock, part of the rock in that island, it's black. And so they thought it was like cursed, like that it was mal ojo, like you should not go there. So for years and years and years, it wasn't really explored. People in Bali, this is something that we found out, once they get into their communities, they don't really leave. A, probably from a financial standpoint, however, also B, like, they're very connected to their village, to their family. And so we ended up going, all the hotels and the main strip of hanging out and things to do that are not related to cliffs or beaches are on the north side. And so we stayed in a little hut there. It was the restroom. There was like not even a couch. There was just like the bed, a very small TV, one chair, and then the restroom. So very small place. And our intention was to be out and about all day. So we were like, we just want a place to sleep. Like, doesn't have to be anything fancy. And so we had the first day, we were going to explore one of the beach and then to go to Kelinken Beach, which is that T-Rex beach. And then the next day we were going to go to the other side of the island, and it takes 30 to an hour sometimes to get to these places. And I'm terrified of motorcycle. I was already terrified of motorcycle. However, if you've been to any of the Southeast countries, like, you know that Southeast Asia, they use motorcycles a lot. And so that was the easiest way to move from one place to another in Nusa Penida. It's to just get a motorcycle. And so we actually rented the motorcycle at our little hut. They have a couple bikes, and so we rented one from them. And the first day we just went to eat and we were tired, and so we went back to one of the restaurants there, and then we went back to bed, and we were like, we'll just explore tomorrow. So tomorrow comes. It was Thanksgiving Day, and we were going to FaceTime our families later in that evening. And so we wake up, we have breakfast. They used to have breakfast there for us, and we set out to explore the little island. And the lanes, like los carriles, they're like meant for motorcycle size. Like, they're very, very narrow. And mind you, this is like not the super touristy part of Bali or Indonesia. However, if you're nervous getting in a bike, like, you're gonna get nervous whether it's crowded, not crowded, meant to be there, not meant to be there. And so I was already nervous for the day, for our stay there, but I was just so excited to go see, some of the places that have been in my Pinterest board since God knows how old I was. And Rocky knows how to drive, so plus there, we got our helmets, we go to the first beach, and Rocky's driving. I am Siri, I am navigation girl, and I'm telling him, where we need to go and making sure that we're going in the right direction. We get to the first beach. It's absolutely gorgeous. We spent a couple of hours there. They had mango smoothies. They had good music. There was not a lot of people, so a lot of the beach was for ourselves. And we were like, okay, I think we're getting to a point that we got our beach vibes in, and we are ready to go to the next adventure. And so, because we were on the beach, I was just wearing a bikini, and I had like some pants and a shirt that I was wearing. And when we were at the beach, I had like a little cover up, and I was just, it was like cover up was just like for my pants. And so I had like no blouse. It was just the bikini. And then we were about to head out, and something in my unconscious, I know it was my divine, I didn't know then, was like, you should really put your sneakers instead of your flip-flops, and like your pants and your shirt instead of just nothing, or the cover up that I had. So I was like, okay, that's kind of random, but sure. So I put everything back on. I did not mention, when we were coming from the road over to the beach, it was like going down. And so I was like holding myself from like the back of the bike, and I was like leaning back. And I mean, Rocky was driving, and so I just kept noticing like the cliffs were like like estaban duras. And I just kept thinking like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like, hold yourself, hold Rocky. I was just like kind of very tense, like going down. Going up, the bike was struggling because, you know, it was like two adults going like very steep hills and like going left and right. And so we get to the main road and we are heading south, and then we needed to go east. And so we were probably 10 minutes or so from the beach, where when I tell Rocky, like, you're going to take a left and then we're going to go through, you know, looks like some village, and then you're going to take a right. So whenever we hit that village, there's like a lot of curves, so we kind of slow down and we're going up a hill. When we were going up that hill, side note, if it's not clear, people in Indonesia and probably in lots parts of Asia, they drive on the opposite sides of Americans. So usually if you're going forward, you're going on the right side of the street, and we were driving on the left side of the street. So we're going up a hill, there's cliffs, and there was a taxi, like a car, coming towards us. So when Rocky sees that, he slows down and he moves out of the way because we, of course, don't want to get hit by the car coming in front of us. And when Rocky moves the bike to the left, he catches himself and the bike with the left foot. However, at the time, I wasn't holding onto the bike. I wasn't holding onto Rocky. I was holding onto my phone. And when Rocky, I'm getting like into the moment myself. When Rocky does that movement, my body just propels out from the bike, and we happen to be next to a cliff, and so I tumbled down 10 to 15 feet, and we were in a village, in my mind, thankfully. So I ended up in, you know, somebody else's yard, somebody else's property, and Rocky, of course, turns around, sees me stumble down, throws a bike, and immediately slits down to go get me. And Indonesia is very close to Australia, and that is where, been told, a lot of Australians go on vacation to Bali. And there was another taxi, another car behind us of two Australian gentlemen, and they saw the whole thing. As Rocky is like helping me stand up and sit in a rock to just like, you know, figure out what's going on, one of the guys goes and picks up the bike, turns it off. Like, Rocky did not care at the bike at the moment, he just threw it. So the guy turns it off, moves it out of the way. I don't even know if there were more cars behind that car. And they come and like check on us. And one of the guys is like, can you feel your foot? By this time, my left foot was like the size of a tangerine, probably. And I can feel my foot, yes. And he was like, can you move? And I was wearing sneakers. And you know, like, even if you move them, like, it's not like you see everything. And so I was like, I'm moving them, but you just can't see them. And he asked me if I could move them sideways. And I was like, I think I can, but I don't want to do that. And he was like, okay. And he was asking me questions, essentially, I guess from like a concussion protocol, to make sure that my head was okay. And honestly, Rocky probably remembers more from this moment, just because whenever I fell, I remember like slow motion, like looking up and just seeing the bright blue sky, and it was like slow-mo for me. Like I don't even know how many turns I like, you know, cuántas veces rodé, like I don't remember that. And when I looked at my phone when I stopped rolling, because I was like, I don't even know how long I'm gonna roll for. I was just super not conscious really at that moment. I look at my phone and none of my nails are broken. None of my phone's not broken. And I just I'm trying to figure out what just happened. And I just had like a I hurt essentially all of my left side because that's when I hit. And Rocky's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, like, babe, are you okay? And I'm just like, probably just sitting there, like, trying to figure out what's going on, like, looking at my foot. And Rocky tells a story of, like, I told him, hey, you need to take a chill pill and, like, walk it off. Mind you, we're newlyweds. Rocky was driving. The feelings of responsibility that he must have felt when your spouse just fell off a cliff on the vehicle that you were driving. And so, of course, he was like, instead of like, want to make sure that you're okay. In my head, I do remember, I don't know how to drive a motorcycle. I'm already panicked of motorcycle. He needs to be in a good place for us to be able to go back, because it's not like we can call a taxi from the middle of nowhere. And I've really never hurt myself before. This was the first injury. And I kind of like went to my foot to see if I could undo the sneaker, and Rocky was like, I don't know a lot about it, but one thing I do know, it's like you don't take your shoe off unless you like are gonna like are in a place that you don't need to put your shoe back on. And so I was like, okay, like we were so close to go seeing Killington Beach, but we're like, no, like we need to leave. So Australian gentlemen, God bless their heart, they said, you know, your guys are good, like everything okay, and we said yes. And so they continued with their journey. The one thing that they did say is like, mate, they almost ran you off the road, blah blah blah, with their accent, which I thought it was pretty funny. That I remember that. And so we get on the bike. Rocky moves it that way. It's not like on a slant. That way, it's on a flat surface. And at this point, like me and Rocky, adrenaline 100%, going through the motions of when you go back. And we get on the mic on the bike, and I was like, you need to get on it. Like there's literally no other option. You are 30 minutes away from home. You need to get on the bike if you want to get to the hotel, get food, anything. So get back on the bike, put my foot wherever I felt safe, grab my phone once again because I'm Ziri, and grab myself from Rocky. So I was hugging Rocky now this time. And we start driving, and kid you not, 5 minutes, 7 minutes into the drive, it starts raining. So Rocky now starts seeing the 20-foot drops, the 30-foot drops, the 60-foot drops, incredibly more dangerous cliffs than the one that I just fell. And now he is holding on super tight to the bike, making sure that he's keeping us safe. And this whole time that it's raining, now we're being very careful with our turns, with how close cars are to us, how close other bikes are to us. The locals are very skilled in driving those bikes and are just like going super fast, going around you. And the thing that helped me navigate getting from wherever I fell to back to the hotel was the song Baby Shark doo 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 doo, Baby Shark doo 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 doo, Baby Shark doo 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 doo, Baby Shark. And I have no idea if it was trendy at that moment, but that is the thing that I just like. I needed something to keep me distracted other than, giving Rocky directions until we got to the hotel. We got to the hotel, took my shoe off, and my ankle, it's huge. And we were halfway across the world, and we knew that we needed to tell someone. However, I did not want to tell my family. I didn't want my mom to freak out, didn't want my grandma to freak out. What were they going to do at that point? So I told Rocky, we need to tell someone. And we told Rocky's dad. We told my father-in-law, sent him a picture, and he responded, "Man, that doesn't look good." And it was funny because he trusts us enough that we will figure it out, and I just wanted someone else to know. And I also texted my best friend Hennessy, and I told her what happened, just for if someone needed to know. Those were the two people that we thought of. And I was not in pain. However, I really wanted to take a shower. So I told Rocky, okay, I'm going to take a shower. And I did. I took a shower, shook it off. It was a tiny restroom. And I think that's why it worked out perfectly, because it wasn't too big of a space. And Rocky comes out of the room and says, we need to take you to a hospital, we need to take you to a doctor. And I was like, no, I'll be fine. And I think this is just me being very doctor adverse, because growing up, you would only go to the doctor when something was wrong, and you didn't want to speak too much because maybe you didn't have money to pay for all the things that were actually wrong with you. And so I think that's where that was coming from. And Rocky was like, no, we need to take you somewhere. So I refused to get on an ambulance. Pride. And we had the owner of the hotel take me to the medical center, which by medical center meant that they had 2 tables to receive patients. Medical center was privately owned, which meant it was more expensive. And the other option was a hospital, which had a longer wait time. So we go to the clinic. Doctor comes in flip-flops. And he's asking us what happened, which scooter accidents is very common amongst tourists. Probably not falling off cliffs, but just people getting hurt with scooters. It's common. And he sees my foot, and for whoever is watching the video, he covers his mouth, and he's like, oh. And he asked me what sound did my ankle make when I fell. And I was like, sir, I was yelling ah, or something when I was falling. I have no idea what sound my ankle did when I was falling. And so he touched it. He was moving it around, and Rocky was like, please don't hurt her more than she's already hurting. And he could not conclude anything without an x-ray. So lovely owner of the hotel took me to the hospital, which was not too far away. They take me to the people who were going to facilitate the x-ray. And I've never had x-rays in a third world country. So they put me in this huge room, wheel me in the wheelchair. I sit down in this bed, and then they put me a vest to protect me from the x-rays on the rest of my body. And they they tell me to like not move my feet, and then they move this like giant metal sheet door, lock it, and then there's like, you know, a red or green light, and then Rocky was on the outside, and he said like press this huge button, and then the x-rays were ongoing, and then they wait for a couple seconds, then unlock it, and then like, move the door all over again. Then they made me do a couple positions to get different angles, and we're waiting for our results, and the x-rays, low quality, still have them, and they could not see any major fractures, which was a great sign. Like my bones were not broken, nothing really else hurt in my body other than some scrapes and moretones in my body, but nothing was broken. So out of that first diagnosis, they couldn't see anything. It was just a lot of swelling. And so they took those x-rays, took them back to the other doctor. Again, they couldn't really see any major fractures, so they gave me blood thinner, ibuprofen, and a bandage for my foot. And homegirl only took one crutch. Rocky will tell this story to everyone that I only wanted one crutch, not two. Why? Again, pride. And so we took one crutch, went back to the hut, and on our way there, we thought we were going to have like this beautiful Thanksgiving dinner, go to a restaurant near the water, and have cocktails, food, enjoy ourselves. And I took a picture of our food. Maybe I'll post it here. And I told my family, Happy Thanksgiving, this is what we're eating. And we ate pasta and pizza. I remember that. And it was a very strong reminder of I'm grateful that I'm alive. I'm grateful that it was my ankle, and that was it. We didn't know how bad it was. I didn't know how bad it was going to get. However, the fact that I fell off that motorcycle, fell off that cliff, tumbled God knows how many times, didn't have a concussion that we know of, and that at that point my ankle was not broken. Later we found out that it was a little broken. And I just feel very grateful that I was still here, still married to Rocky, still on this planet. And I didn't know that this was God's way of showing us how strong our marriage was going to be through this experience, because the first lesson that I'll share, that it took all this time to get to the first lesson, is because I needed to learn how to ask for help. When Rocky was taking care of me, he would help me go to the restroom, he would help me get dressed, he would help me adjust the wrap. I was putting cream on the injury for every couple of hours. He was helping me adjust the pillows because it needed to be elevated. He was helping me with so much, and learning how to ask for help was the first lesson because I had no other option. Because one of my favorite memories from this lesson is when we got to our second hotel. The hotel after that, it was like our private little villa. We had our own plunge pool. We had a huge room. We got upgraded thanks to Marriott. And I have this thing that I know exactly where my things are, or things around the house. Like I could tell you it's in the dressing room to the left in this little box, and it should be somewhere in the right. How? I have no idea. So when I was resting, I asked Rocky if he could bring me my pink bag. And Rocky was like, okay, what do you want out of your pink bag? And I was like, oh, no, just bring me my pink bag. And he was like, babe, I can get it to you if you just tell me exactly what you want. And let's say I wanted a pen and a notebook and then a highlighter. And I was like, no, babe, just bring me the pink bag. And he would be, tell me what you want, girl. And it was very powerful because he was like, I'm willing to do all these things. However, you need to communicate. You need to tell me what you want. And so I would tell him this notebook or this book. And then the pen that I want, it's in this blue little baggie that should be to the right of the bag or in this zipper. And it was an exercise of not only when we were still in Bali, but even coming home of like, hey, can you bring me this from the other room? And there was an occasion that I asked him to go to the same room or the same place like 2 times. And so he was like, tell me everything you want in one go and I'll bring it. So reframing asking for help to feeling like a burden to other people was something that it took this experience for me to like truly learn that, because anytime, let's say my girlfriends and I wanted to go out, somebody else had to drive me, somebody else had to go pick me up. Shout out to Danny, because Danny was always there, happy, helping me, like picking me up, opening me the door, or like dropping me off next to the restaurant or wherever we were going. That way I couldn't walk, or that way I wouldn't walk as much. So thank you, Danny, for always picking me up. I love you. The second one that I value so much is that it was probably one of the first times that I allowed myself to go to the dark waters, like those dark emotions that honestly I've been too scared to like go there by myself. Whenever I fell first, I did what I know how to do like an expert, which is to repress my emotions and be high on adrenaline and try to carry on for the time being. Once the last hotel before we came back was also another upgrade, and they even gave me a wheelchair of how big the place was, and so I was like being wheeled around in the hotel, which I thought it was pretty hilarious. All that time I think I was just like, repressing my emotions. I can't deal with you, I can't do anything about it, so I'm just like gonna ignore it. And once we got home, once I was able to, I went to urgent care, they gave me a boot. Then I got a appointment with the orthopedic, and once they gave me the full diagnosis of what happened, which is that I had a small fracture when my ligament was tearing. That is what broke my bone actually, and I've severed all of my ligaments as a grade 2, almost a grade 3, which means that thankfully I did not need surgery, just by a hairline. That meant that my ligaments were severed enough that, or I guess severed not bad enough that they were like still touching and could still like do the healing on its own without surgical intervention. Once got an MRI on it, once I had that full diagnosis, I think once I knew what was going on, it's when like the full range of emotions was like, we gotta deal with this now, mom. And for those who have seen Lion King, there's this scene where Simba is staring at himself and then he sees the reflection of Mufasa speaking to him. I felt like that scene, but that at the end of the day, the safety of the relationship is what I was staring at. Like, Simba's safety was like the fact that he's that taught him a lot of things, and just the love of his parent helped him go through like that dark moment. And I think for me, what I was looking at was the strong foundation in my relationship with Rocky. And it was incredibly painful to see how the bruising on my foot kept just like spreading to different, like my toes, to different parts of my leg, to different parts of my foot. And it was extremely hard to look at it. I'm the one that likes little pictures of everything and sends it to my mom or send to my family or just to keep it. And I could not take pictures of my foot. Like it was so hard for me to visibly see how my foot, it looked like it wasn't improving. Of course, very grateful of all my different systems that it was healing. It was just like, I'm not healing fast enough. So that's the second lesson of like feeling deep emotions and figuring out what's that safety for you in order for you to go to those deep places. It was a beautiful gift, I think, for me to trust in our relationship, to trust Rocky, that I was actually able to meet myself even deeper. Even I was in my mid-20s, it was like 10 layers deep that I was able to know myself in that sadness, in that grief, in that unknowing, in that waiting period. And lesson number 3 was really about becoming inconvenient for my safety. And this is like very strangely worded. However, that is how I feel that it's best represented, because for most of my life, I've been told to not cause any trouble, to not express my needs. And because I needed special care at the time, like I was inconvenient. I needed to be inconvenient. For example, what I just shared of being inconvenient for Danny to come pick me up, being inconvenient for being wheeled around. The airports in Bali in South Korea were like so understanding that I was in a wheelchair, that I had something on my foot, that I had the crutch. They were so understanding and supportive. And really was when I came to the States, I became very inconvenient for everyone around me, because they honestly were not respecting that my foot was sticking out and that they could potentially hit me with their luggage. And there were a couple people that they did hit me. And sometimes we need to become inconvenient for your safety, whether it's your psychological safety, your emotional safety, your emotional safety. I think it's important, and it's okay to be inconvenient. Like, not everything it's about protecting others, it's about what you need in that moment. And the fact that I was inconvenient, that doesn't mean that I was not respectful, not educated. It just needed that I needed that extra space, extra layer, extra whatever you want to call it. And then lesson number 4 was really about visibility and not giving into all the extra eyeballs. When I was going through this period, I did not have really a lot of options that truly accommodated to what I needed, in terms of like walking or wheelchairs or things like that. So one of my favorite things to do became go to Target, because they have those little carritos, the electric little carts. And so I could like browse around the store without really walking on my foot while it was healing. Whether I still had the boot, but it was just how I was walking that I didn't want to walk on it as much at that point. And I remember vividly when Rocky would drop me off at the door, he will go park the car, and then I will go find the little electric carrito so I can get on it. And then by the time Rocky would come to the store, I'll be waiting for him at the entrance. And so people will stare at me when I was in that carrito because they see my lovely face, a young woman riding the cart. And it was the best thing for me to get around. And it wasn't until they saw the other side, the one where you could see the boot, that they would be like, oh, okay, like she has a boot, it's okay, she can be in the carrito. But I would get so much judgment, I would get so many looks, I would get so much kind of like weird energy coming from them. And so those extra eyeballs, whether it was at home or now that I'm more public on social media, it really gave me an opportunity of like focusing on who I truly am. I needed the card for whatever reason. People are entitled to their own opinions, but I do not have to receive their judgment. I don't need to accept the looks, and I don't want to give them my power, because I was doing all of that for my safety and for, honestly, I just wanted to be outside. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So I think that one took me a little bit of time because I had so much shame for having the boot, for having the wrap, for having the crutch. I didn't expand on this after we went to that second place where we had our own plunge pool and everything. I am very stubborn for the things that I care about, and I really wanted to go see Killington Beach. So I booked what they call an Instagram tour, which basically means that they drop you off at the ferry. They ferry you back to the island, to Nusa Penida, and there's going to be a car driver with you that is essentially just going to take you from spot to spot to do a photo op Instagram tour. And in my case, like, that's the only thing I could do. Some of these beaches that are beautiful, you can hike down, like see the scenery, see the cliff, and then hike down and actually go to the beach. That was our intention when we initially were going to be there for a couple of days. That was our intention, to go to the beach, or go see the sightseeing, and then go to the beach, hike down or walk down, whatever the scenario might be. And now that I couldn't, I still wanted to go back and hire that driver. And so they took us to Killington Beach, and we have pictures there where Rocky and I are posing, and I'm literally hiding my left foot, which was the foot that had the injury. I'm hiding my left foot behind my right foot, or behind Rocky, because I didn't want to see it come in the pictures. And I just want to give myself a hug in that moment, because I had an accident. There was nothing to be ashamed of. There was nothing that I could have done differently. There was nothing really Rocky could have done differently. That was just where we were at. My foot was on medication. We were wrapping it. We were doing all the things that we needed to do for it to get better, other than, being out in the world. And there's so many pictures that I am hiding my foot. So all those extra eyeballs really forced me to embrace who I am, who I was at the moment, and that being inconvenient it was part of my journey. The last lesson was to slow down. For most of my life, I've been a hyperachiever. I think this is a trauma response for wanting approval, wanting validation from my parents and from superiors, people in authority. And it was and still continues to be a process to get to a healthy place with rest, with recover. And literally this experience forced me to rest, to be a couch potato. I essentially was on bed rest for a couple of weeks before I could go back to the orthopedic, to then being cleared to doing physical therapy. And Thanksgiving week, most of the years, lands in Tata's birthday. My grandpa's birthday is November 29th, 11/29. This year, Thanksgiving, it's on a Thursday, and his birthday, it's the day after that. So he didn't have the pleasure. He worked Monday through Saturday, every single day, and then Sunday was to go to church, go to El Paso, and so my grandpa never rested. He never really had that luxury. So slowing down was something that took time for me to adjust, and even I recently was sick. Probably heard it in previous episodes that my nose was a little congested, and saying, hey, I had planned to record this podcast or to edit the podcast, and I just don't feel great, and giving myself permission to okay, you're just gonna soak with the couch and cuddle Simba and drink medicine and watch TV, and that's okay. That is what your body needs right now. I honestly think because of this experience, I've been able to be in a better place with resting, with recovering, with slowing down, and really prioritizing what my body needs at different times. And my Huna notebook, it's something that I keep very, very sacred. And I grabbed this notebook, and we talked about how Grandma gave me Los Cuatro Acuerdos 10 years ago, how my tío Efra gave me that book also 10 years ago. When I grabbed this notebook, the date that's listed here, it's 11/29, my grandpa's birthday. And I wrote that I would get my manifestation when I said I will feel it in my 7 billion cells, which is how many cells we have in our bodies. I will get a sign from the universe and from Tata that is a confirmation. The house will be sold. The house is sold with an amazing offer and buyer. You are already limitless, loved, guided, and protected. And Tata, it's a huge inspiration for this podcast, for a lot of things that I live my values in my life, and celebrating this Thanksgiving in his name, honoring this podcast on making me feel protected. I think even though it was painful, it was emotional, it was vulnerable, it was a lot of physical recovery, it was a lot of mental and emotional fitness being exercised through here, I always felt very supported and protected by him. And I feel very grateful for the 15 years that I had with him, for all the inspiration that he gave me and continues to give me through the signs and synchronicities that he shares, and for all those seeds that he planted that have been harvested and will continue to be harvested, that he didn't even know were things that were going to be possible. So I want to remind you that this too shall pass. Like, my healing journey through this past is all going to work out. Keep going. And I send you all my love this Thanksgiving, for you, for your family, for your loved ones, wherever you are celebrating this, or if maybe you don't celebrate this, just a reminder to count your blessings. You probably will run out of fingers and numbers once you count everything around you. That is one more reason to be grateful for. And today I am grateful that you exist, that you're here, that you're alive, and I send you a lot of love.